Everyone.
Hi, everyone. That was incredibly too kind of an intro.
Yes.
I'm so excited to be here with you,
By the way,
Manuel.
I love the intro of Angelique and Manuel, which is great. But by
Save
the
the
way,
best for
look,
last.
I was telling you, I was preparing. I went analog in my cue cards
Yeah.
and I started, realizing how bad my handwriting is. But I had a lot. I had actually all your achievements. It took me two cue cards actually. I just want to breeze through them. It's incredible. Adweek top 100. This is recent, right? Another round of applause, please, for Angelique. This is fantastic. Forbes most entrepreneurial CMO, CMO to watch, Business Insider. You have 15 years of award-winning campaigns, not just on brand side, agency side, retailer side. Wow. It's most recently you were global marketing at Alo Yoga, but you've also held marketing and leadership positions at LVMH, Sephora, Holt Renfrew, Stitch Fix. Continue, it's two cue cards, and I had one, the third one, which is just like wow. This is like truly incredible. So thank you. First, I want to thank Brand Innovators for the invitation and for giving me the chance of sharing the stage with such an amazing, talented person. We're going to be talking today about the future of retail and commerce, and hearing Angelique's fantastic journey and thoughts. And well, Angelique, welcome. And
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here with you and with all of you, obviously, as well.
so look, I'm gonna start. I feel that we have a lot in common. I heard that you majored in accounting and you ended up in marketing. I hated accounting and ended up in
Oh my gosh,
marketing.
hated it so much too.
But I think that we were both very driven by creativity.
Yeah.
My role, I have to be driven by creativity, but I'm so excited to meet a CMO that is so driven by creativity. So tell me a little bit about how creativity has helped you in your journey of building these amazing brands.
Yeah, I'm someone who's highly inspired, and so although I also studied accounting, did accounting, worked as an auditor at Deloitte in accounting, I've always been very inspired by the world around me, by the people that I meet, folks in this room, you, and just want to bring that into the work that I do every single day, the inspiration that I do, and that's really sparked and stemmed in. Kind of the push and pursuit for more, the push and pursuit for innovation, and the push and pursuit for how can we do things differently? How can we cut through the noise, right? That's like our job as marketers. We always want to cut through the noise. We want to be able to truly not only make an impact, but speak to our community, our consumers in ways that haven't been done before. And that's all driven by that creativity. So yeah,
That's great.
definitely driving force.
And you're talking about talking to consumers and to community in a way that has never been done before. So I think that that's a great way to you telling us a little bit about your time at Alo Yoga. I gotta admit, I feel ashamed that I didn't know about Alo Yoga until my wife took me to the store, and I can tell you it's life changing. I wish I was actually wearing Alo Yoga now because of the heat, but it's amazing. It's amazing to see such a big brand head to head with Lululemon and beating them in their own field. And it's like, tell me a little bit about how you've not done this with the traditional approaches of mass media. You actually harness the power of new and emerging channels to be able to do this. If you can tell us a little bit about that time in Alo Yoga, it would be amazing.
Of course. I think the success at Alo has been really leaning into community and having community in its core. And so that includes, creating channels that might be different than your typical. We have, for example, a Telegram with 6,000 yogis across the world. They're teaching classes for us in different countries, different cities, different locations. And you would think, like, okay, they're probably on an email thread or something. No, we're on Telegrams with them every single day to understand, what's new, what's resonating, how can we create something that makes you feel seen and included where you also want to be an ambassador for the brand. And it's kind of thinking back to scrappy ways of creating community, and that's an example of a channel. But innovation and technology have also very much so been a vehicle to do the same thing. We're certainly a brand that is social first, right? Influencer first, and that's not a surprise to anyone here, I'm sure. But how do we push that to the next level? And what does that mean when you think of new channels, right? When you think of the extension of social as we know it today, as kind of Matt alluded to in his intro, we have certainly explored what that looks like in Web3, and on blockchain, in different realms. When you think of digital clothing, when you think of the metaverse, when you think of all these places which folks can be reached, how do we hone in on that and create community? And those channels have certainly been a part of that journey.
Yeah. So this is really exciting. And we'll get a little bit of terms of Web3 and metaverse, but I want to go back a little bit to what you said. Influencer first. Definitely Aloe Yoga, big brand amongst influencers. Tell me a little bit of what you think the role of the influencer marketing is going to be in the future. And now especially in a TikTok world, you have. Is it micro influencers, or you're talking about employees being the influencers, co-creation of content? Where do you see this going? Because I also feel that there's a little bit of fatigue on,
Totally.
the use of the influencer. Everything starts with we should use influencers to do this. We should do.
Right.
So tell me how you have harnessed that power.
Yeah,
the
and to that
influencers.
point, I mean, we're all excited about de-influencing, right? We're all excited about that term, and into how, we're not being necessarily manipulated into thinking that someone actually loves a product, but how do we know that they live and breathe those values, and how do we know that they genuinely connect with the brands and the products that they, are really excited about? And when you think of it in that realm, I think the future looks like one-to-one relationships and one-to-one kind of co-creation with brands. None of this transactional kind of one and done stuff, post, pay, goodbye, but really how do you build long-term, year-long, multi-year strategies? And that's effectively what we've done. Folks would be really surprised to hear how many influencers are actually paid by the company. It's less than 50. Less than 50 influencers are paid. And that means that you have thousands and thousands of creators at Aloe and influencers that are that are organic, and that's because we've built those relationships and we've taken the time to, authentically get to know our yogis, our holistic healers, our fashionistas, our lifestyle enthusiasts, and so I do think that the future of influencer marketing looks exactly like that.
Yeah.
Where it's it's building a relationship, like you and I, right?
Yeah.
If you love the brand and you're wearing it, I'll be influenced by you, and you might be creating content, you might be co-creating content, and there's something really beautiful in that because it's flipping the typical relationship on its head.
Yeah. And there's something very interesting you said about how we want to make sure that it feels organic and doesn't feel paid, right? And a lot of the times we still pay to make it feel organic.
Yeah,
right.
that's true.
But it comes out really fake, and I think that a lot of the times you can really tell. One of the things that I was listening to some of your interviews, and I was looking at. You said it yourself, like word of mouth is a very important part. I hear that you do almost 80 to 90 events per month. I didn't mishear that. I was
No,
wow,
no.
80 to 90 events per month sometimes.
Yeah.
And I feel that you've openly spoken about how these experiences and these events will actually build a brand and give this word of mouth that we want to and today in an age where you're constantly thinking about what's the return of investment, what's the return of how do you measure the value of these experiences?
Yeah, and not all experiences are created the same, right?
Yeah.
When you talk about these 90, it's like sometimes 90 to 100 a month. There's different tiers of what that looks like. Some of them are fully online. Some of them are over Zoom. It might be a class. It might be like how to do breath work over, a digital forum. Some of them might be in person, and then some of them might be large scale tentpole events like an Aloe House or like joining our Aloe Wellness Club and things like that. But when you think of really the KPIs of what drives success for every one of them, whether you're doing a small class in the park here or taking yoga in the morning and there's 10 people, that's still an event. But at the end of the day, the KPIs, those compared to like if 7,000 people are coming to a big tentpole moment, the KPIs are still the same. It's brand awareness. Is someone coming to your brand event big or small, again, and are they able to understand and live and breathe the values that you have as a brand? And if they're able to connect and say, wow, this is for me, then that's a win.
Yeah.
And I know that sounds super intangible, right? For this group, you're like, okay, right, what does that mean? Well, I mean, at a high level, you're able to understand what that's driving for you, not only with like health trackers, right, and understanding lifts in market and geographical areas, but really also looking at a bit more tangible pieces, like what is that driving in terms of your UMV, your EMV?
Yeah.
What is that driving, all the way through mid-funnel where you're bringing traffic to site? And so we do see lifts in specific markets. We see lifts after specific events, after specific celebrities have worn certain pieces and been photographed and impressed after attending an event. So all of that encapsulates if someone understands and knows the brand after having experienced you.
Angelic, and I'm very curious about how the process of coming up with these events is, right? Because I imagine you have an internal team that works on the suggestions. Do you get involved? How involved do you get? You get into the brainstorms? What type of ideation comes to the table? Do you say yes to everything and test and learn from it? Or what's the criteria that you have when you have this process? And I'm very curious, as a creative that is also kind of like in processes, very curious about how it works from the client side, from the brand side.
Yeah, I think, and this might not be a surprise to anyone, and we've spoken about this. I am someone who leads by like getting my hands in there and like rolling up my sleeves and fully kind of living the experience, because as a creative, if you're not part of every step of the process, and not in a micromanaging way at all, but if you're not inspired by what you're creating and you're not a part of those daily dialogues with the teams and with the community that will eventually be a part of those events and or strategies. We were speaking of events earlier, but a slew of other types of strategies, right, in the marketing realm. Then you kind of you start to be disconnected. Whereas for me, it's like I'm in the shoe of the consumer, love and breathe the brand, love the product. How would I, as a consumer, right, being in their shoes, want to be approached by a brand, want to build a relationship, have a conversation and a dialogue with the brand. And so being hyper involved is kind of how I get inspired.
Yes. And are you also involved, for example, on how the physical store looks like and how the experience happens there? Is it something also that you will get involved with?
Yeah. I mean, Aloe is a social first brand, and it's a brand first company, so it's a social company. But being brand led, you're involved in everything. You're involved in product and design review. You're involved in everything from almost reviewing merchandising and being like, yes, these things go together. How will that translate to stores? What will the experience look like in stores, right? And connecting the dots between that full journey. You're coming in through our cycle. You might have met us through an influencer page, right?
Yeah.
Love the outfit you're wearing, Manuel. I'm coming onto your Instagram. I'm coming then to the site. Then on site, I might say, okay, I actually want to go try on the clothes. Let me go to store. You might go to store. There might be an AR try-on mirror where you're trying that outfit. You'll take a photo. Then you might add to cart, but not do it in store and come do it later online. There's so many different touch points, and being able to impact and to have resonance at each of those points is really special and is really meaningful, especially when your main goal, again, is being brand led, brand first.
Yeah.
And you really want to create that affinity.
Yeah. So because it's lovely that you talk about how the brand is social first, but actually one of the things that impressed me the most was the physical store in Aloe Yoga, and I think that, of course, if we were going to be talking about commerce, we get excited about the physical store and what the role of the physical store is, especially in a post-pandemic world, right? With a brand that is so successful at social, you would think that maybe a team would go and say, okay, let's just focus our efforts on social commerce and let's not just. So what now becomes the role of the physical store?
Yeah, the role of the physical store is truly to experience, right? And it's to be in a place where, for us at least, it's, okay, cool, I want this to be part of my wellness journey. I might go in and buy some leggings, some shorts, but I might also go in because this is my local yoga studio. Yeah. And this is where I take classes, and this is where I learn how to do breathwork. But it might also be your local cafe where you're getting an adaptogen latte, right? Or a superfood smoothie. And I think that's the role of the store, not only for us, but role of the store for the future. You're coming in to experience, because otherwise, you could just be going online. That's transactional. Once again, you're not creating that memory or that sentimental kind of. I'm thinking in French, but sens of appartenance, which is like belonging.
Yes.
And that's to me like the best role, because you have the associate who's your brand ambassador. You're able to have multiple touch points where you're involved, but you're not necessarily being asked to exchange your data. You're not being asked to transact or to buy something. If you so happen to wish to do that, then it's of course available, and footprints
Yeah.
are there for that too. But for us, at least, disproportionately a D2C business that's hyper online and hyper digital, the store is as like your first touch point and entry point to understand, and back to what we were saying earlier, live and breathe the brand.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about metaverse, because last year everyone was definitely, it was the talk of the town. Everyone
Yeah.
talking about metaverse and NFTs, and this year everyone devoted their attention to AI. But I'm curious to see, because there was a big bet on how these virtual worlds can become a replacement for the physical store.
Yeah.
I see that the physical store is a big part of your, let's say, your plan, your strategy in terms of marketing and getting brand love and brand recognition. But how are you experimenting with the metaverse in terms of the virtual stores and virtual options for people?
Yeah, it's, I think, going all the way back to maybe one of the first questions about new channels, right?
Mhm.
And how we're leaning into new channels to really be able to engage with the audiences. And I think for folks who are creating with the hype cycle of last year of, okay, buzzword, 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 let us create something. And I know that's not the case for anyone here, but it's instead of that and trying to get in the press cycles and whatnot, we've seen the metaverse as an extension of social, being a very social first, like we said earlier. That doesn't just mean Instagram. There's so many other channels. And of course, in the traditional realm of what social media is, the metaverse is also that. You're able to engage with your community, speak to them, have them experience you in this digital world that is very communal, that is very conversational, and have really effectively used the metaverse, not too dissimilar to the
Yeah.
store, but as a first touch point. And so, we now have 80 million people doing yoga and meditation with us in the metaverse. And
That's really cool.
yeah, and
That's fun. Yeah.
yeah, it's been great, and it's interesting to think of this concept. But we sold more leggings in the metaverse last year than we did in real life. So more pieces of digital clothing and leggings were sold in the metaverse than physical pieces of clothing. And that's like something to think of, and something to say, okay, that there's an impact on the business,
Yeah.
right? There's very tangible revenue dollars tied to that. And when you think of leaning into communities in that way, it just opens the doors and floodgates for again, that co-creation, that ownership of the journey, but really kind of a new sense of digital identity and how do you express yourself in ways both IRL and URL.
That sounds fantastic. Wow, and it's true. Like, if you have that experience in the metaverse and you have an option to be able to convert them right there, right then, when you're connecting with the brand, definitely is a great success. Let's talk about talking about digital and technology. I think there's something very interesting between the intersection of technology and fashion, right? Or technology and we know we ourselves we last year, one of our biggest clients, which was AB InBev, innovated with a jersey that allowed fans to pay in stadiums by tapping on their chest, and they did this because, of course, there was a contextual let's say situation where the fans were not taking wallets or phones to their stadium,
Right.
because there was a lot of pickpocketing. This was happening in Latin America, and what Corona said, well, this is a big challenge because we have beer, we have to sell beer, and if we don't take wallets, or then so they created the wearable, right? And that created this whole dynamic of fan engagement through the jersey. I'm curious about what you think of technology as that enhancer of experience, especially maybe with your own products or in store.
Yeah, I mean, I love that example. I love the
Yeah.
idea of connected products, right? And I'm sure that was like enabled via NFC chip. And there's something so
Yeah.
beautiful about being able to just integrate it naturally in something that the consumer wants already. For example, all over May, for some of you that might not know, May is Mental Health Awareness Month.
Yeah.
And we also played in the NFC chip realm where you basically were able to walk into store and you were able to kind of tap around multiple pieces of clothing and get this beautiful daily affirmation. And it was almost just like a surprise and delight where you were effectively tapping around and
Yeah.
let's say I would tap this and it would be like, take a deep breath and breathe, you've got this, like
Oh, that's
whatever
so
that is,
good.
just really
Yes.
positive. And again, that's not tying it to a price point or to a transaction,
Yes.
but it's tying it to an emotion and you're like, okay, yeah, we'll have a great day. It's just so beautiful to live that. And same thing with your example of the jerseys. I love that
Yes.
because yeah, they're already wearing that to the game. They're proud to show their colors, and then it's just an easy tap in so that they can still
Yes.
enjoy their time without having to carry all these things in their pockets.
Yes. I love what you're saying about, buying is no longer just a transaction, right? It is an emotional connection with the brand. Right? It could be an emotional connection to the brand,
It should be.
and those that are understanding it very well are assimilating that. Tell us a little bit about we've been in Canada. I'm sure this is not your first time here. Do you follow the work that's winning? What type of categories do you follow and like to see?
Yeah, back to the beginning, like highly, highly inspired by my surroundings as a creative myself, right? And although leading creative strategy and creative comms and creative team leadership, the creative is just so, so, so inspiring. And so whether that's like in the traditional realms, out of home realms, even digital awards, right? It's just been so beautiful to
Yeah.
see kind of the honorees in the different categories and the short lists that were published. I
Yeah.
think was it on Monday, and to even walk through the Palais. I don't know if you've done that yet, but just so 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 inspiring because you're able to see all these amazing pieces of work from around the world, and truly at the core, they all have this through line of really understanding their consumer,
Yes.
cutting through the noise, which is so like the goal in what we do as marketers. But then ultimately also kind of you can see the creative folks have poured their heart and soul into it. And even as someone who might not be in the target market of some of these pieces,
Yeah.
you're like, wow, okay, this is like magnificent. Yeah. Have you
Yeah,
walked
no,
through?
it's like I mean, look, it's like I say it's like a love-hate relationship with Cannes in the sense of like it could be the best week, or it could be the worst. It depends if we win in the first day or not, right? It's like, but look, I've seen so many cool ideas in the retail space, right? And one of the things that was catching my attention a lot was sustainability. How does a brand that does clothing or that's fashion or apparel play in the world of sustainability? And a lot of really exciting cases. I don't know if you saw. There was one that was really fun. What Lacoste has done really nice things about. There's this whole thing about if you order online and you get the box with your piece of garment, then you can use the same box to be able to send other clothing to another place, right? Or Diesel had a fantastic idea about the people that buy and they return the clothes. It's kind of like incentivizing that, but it's truly an exciting case. And if you look at the Gen Z research, is starting to say like, hey, they're willing to spend much more on a brand that is linked to sustainability. They're even willing to change their favorite brand for a brand that is linked to sustainability. So I wonder, what do you think about this? But not just sustainability, but also if there's any other future predictions that you feel that are playing in our retail space.
Yeah. I mean, sustainability is so important. To your point about kind of Gen Z and what's important, what's also really important for us to acknowledge in this outdoor room, proverbial room, is the concept of style halls. When you think of fashion and style halls, of buying, like 20 items and then recording a TikTok or a reel and returning those 20 items, like that is the antithesis of sustainable.
Yeah.
And when you think of digital realms in which like you can perhaps interact, right? When you think of AR filters, whether that's in store, like the mirrors I slightly alluded to earlier, or just an exploration of digital clothing or digital identity, where you're able to still wear it in different capacities, physical or not, and represent yourself with that piece of clothing, you now start kind of peeling back with, hey, do I actually need to buy this piece of clothing, or am I actually just doing it to engage?
Yeah.
And those are two different things. And so if you're buying it to, wear it, then that's sustainable at the core of fashion, right? But if you're buying it to do something else with it and then returning it, then that's not there. So these new kind of channels and technologies really opened the door for how we can kind of lessen and diminish our impact in when you think of returns, when you think of the sustainability that comes, with a lot of fashion retailers, where you're not putting things back in merchandise; it's going into like a landfill. It would be silly not to acknowledge that.
Yes, this is fantastic, Angelique. So I know that we are running out of time, but look, it's like a dream to be able to work with CMOs that have your vision, that have your likeness for creativity, right? I think that a lot of the times when we speak about what is your agency doing great work or not, we always kind of like a bit of harsh to say like, oh, it's because we don't have a brave client that can think about work and stuff like that. But I think it's very enlightening when you're saying. I think that what I want to do now is open if there's any questions, if anyone on the floor wants to ask Angelique any question, raise hands.
I could ask you.
No.
Oh, go ahead.
I could bring.
I was going to ask you questions too.
That would be good too for you to turn the mic over to him as well. I'd love to hear that. But my curiosity is a little bit of the David Goliath challenge. I know Manuel hit on it a little bit in terms of Lululemon, but you're obviously a small brand, somewhat unknown, and you come out, you kind of take on by storm the big players. Did you, one, see them react? And two, what was your strategy to deal with that?
That's actually a really great question. When you think of Alo, you certainly think of challenger brand. You think of, again, a social first, a brand-led company, and significantly smaller by orders of magnitude. Privately owned, small physical footprint compared to some of the giants, like you mentioned, the Lulus of the world. And it's obviously not necessarily a competition, because we're speaking to different people, and different people are coming into the community. And it's wonderful to see kind of how the brand has resonated and how the brand has been almost like people are wearing Alo as a badge of honor. They're like, yeah, I take my wellness to heart. I'm wearing my Alo. Yeah, I meditated today for 5 minutes. Here's my badge that shows that. And it's almost flipping the mindset. And the important thing for us as we were creating, hopefully, you're right, it's still not necessarily a household name, but as we're getting to a place of household name, certainly in the US at least, it's truly been about transcending the category. And so we're not playing in the athleisure space. We're not playing in the sports apparel space. There's a ton of players there. But how do you transcend that? And for us, it's been transcending into wellness. How do you really lean into the values that are wellness? So when I describe the brand, it's not an athleisure company. We're a wellness company. And that's what sets it apart.
First of all, thank you so much both. I thought that was an amazing conversation. One of the questions I had, Angelic, is that you spoke about building relationships with your audience, and there are a number of large organizations that can invest in the data to really understand the category and the audiences that they're trying to target. How are you building your relationships with your consumers, the people that follow you, and how are you capturing that really important kind of data to be able to give you an insight as to how they're going to behave now and in the future?
Yeah, of course. What's really interesting, right? Like when you're presented with reports on data or reports of data, you're able to obviously understand numbers. You're able to understand where things come from. But really, at the end of the day, numbers are numbers. And if you're not able to draw insights from them, and if you're not able to extract conclusions as to what next, then that data is not helping you. You could, of course, do like a postmortem and just have like a bird's eye view. Okay, this is what happened, but then what? And it's that, but then what that the teams take that truly create strategies that cut back through the noise. And I think that's been an important part, and also important realization that it's not only science, but it's art and science. And as marketers, there's a big part of art, right? I'm very vocal about this. I love being creative, and that's art. But how do you marry that back with science? And this is where the data plays in. You have to be able to know how to use it, when to use it, and when not to use it. Sometimes the data will tell you something great, optimize this ad. Well, that's great, but that optimized ad with a discount is actually hurting your brand. So you have to be able to kind of have the foresight to say, no, although this is top performing, we're not going to be leaning into this direction. And that's like the easiest example, but there's a slew of others in market that's less tangible than ads where you have to apply that critical eye.
And a lot of times it ends up being gut feeling.
It is gut feeling.
Right,
And
it's
I know
like-
folks hate hearing that. It's gut feeling. And it's like, I am in the shoes of the consumer and my community members.
Yes.
And here's what I would like to do if I were in those shoes.
Yeah.
Taking our hats off of like, oh, I'm representing the brand. When brands only represent the brand, we're speaking to ourselves.
Yes.
No one gives a shit that it's like your 10th year anniversary. But what does that look like, and how will the consumer care?
Yeah.
That's where you truly create that connection.
It's true.
All right, round of applause for Manuel and Angelic.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you guys. That was wonderful. And as we prepare